Good morning, Spelman sisters. I'm Adrienne Lance Lucas, president of the National Alumni Association for Spelman College, the Atlanta chapter. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to Spelman Day at the Capitol 2021. Thank you for joining us. This year's theme is Turning the Page of History, the next stage of advocacy and work. We are living in a time of unprecedented historical circumstances. Several of our civil rights icons who once served and fought for the equality and freedom of the African American community and women are no longer with us. Their influence inspires us and is embodied in the new leaders within the legislative caucus who have vowed to take up the mantle to address the people's concerns: healthcare, voting rights, and education. For those who have survived during this pandemic, God has spared us, and we must embrace our resilience and the opportunity to set the standard to raise honor and attention to an agenda for change. Endurance is our distinguishing characteristic, affording us favor. Today's objectives are to listen, learn, and accept accountability for the legislative issues we feel most important. My sisters and I have logged in from across the state of Georgia as stakeholders, unified in our purpose and commitment to the next level of work and advocacy required to make a difference. We bring you greetings this morning from Athens, led by Chapter President Keisha Bailey. From Augusta, led by Chapter President Vanessa Spearman. From Columbus, led by Chapter President Vicki Hardaway. From Decatur, filling in for Chapter President Rhonda Waller, Rashida Hassan. From Savannah, led by Chapter President Denise Cooper. From West Georgia, led by Chapter President Tanita Teagle. And from Atlanta, Sharon Reese, our president-elect for the Atlanta chapter. And finally, our regional coordinator, Pamela Cooper. The movement of today will be fluid. Legislators will drop in to say hello and discuss bills that they may have sponsored or want to educate us about, along with the risks and rewards for its adoption. Also, we'll hear three legislative presentations from our friends at the American Civil Liberties Union and the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. This day's coordination would not be possible without our generous host, the Honorable Senator Gail Davenport, who has managed to care for us for many, many years at the Capitol. She is a member of the class of 1970, and she's celebrating her birthday today. So we want to make sure that everyone gives her just a virtual hug as she goes throughout her days through these halls today. She will be joining us shortly. We also want to acknowledge her Chief of Staff, Karen Thompson, for her hard work in assisting with today's planning. And Karen, too, is a Spelmanite. The Atlanta Chapter Social Action Committee, Anita Thomas Wallace and Kayla Thigpen, thank you so much for your diligence in assisting us with this program. So now, just a couple of housekeeping items as we move forward. Please take advantage of the chat and Q&A features of your webinar platform. We'll do our best to make sure that we answer those questions throughout the session. So I'm going to pause there and see if we can get started, Keisha. Are there any legislators that have joined us so far? And I'm scanning I don't see any. So what we will do at this point until the legislators come in, we're going to pivot to our chapter president, Denise Cooper, to introduce our first legislative presentation by the ACLU. Thank you.
Good morning. What a great day on this first day of Women's History Month to gather for such a time as this. Our first presenter is Mr. Christopher Bruce. He is a lawyer, lobbyist, and lecturer who works tirelessly for Black people to achieve justice, fairness, and equality in America. As an attorney, Bruce is the founder of his own criminal defense law firm that specifically defends Black men and women who are unjustly prosecuted by the justice system and consults for personal injury firms so Black people are fairly treated. As a social justice lobbyist, he serves as the political director of the American Civil Liberties Union of Georgia, where he has led countless campaigns to protect the right to vote, including protecting Black voters in South Atlanta by preventing the closure of polling locations in majority Black districts and defending legislation that added sentencing enhancements purposely targeting Black Lives Matter protesters. Attorney Bruce also led a coalition of civil rights leaders and organizations that defended legislation which would have jeopardized early voting hours and eliminated souls to the polls campaigns. He is currently working with our national organizations to pass the Breonna Taylor's law to ban no-knock warrants and protect Blacks' sacred right to vote. Mr. Bruce graduated cum laude from Georgia State University's Honors College, where he currently teaches a senior seminar on civil rights and liberties, and obtained his law degree from the University of Georgia. He has been featured in publications such as the Wall Street Journal, National Public Radio, NPR, and Time Magazine. He has been a guest lecturer at many universities, including Harvard Law School. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce him today for this impactful opportunity to share with us today. Attorney Christopher Bruce.
Thank you, President Cooper. Thank you for the introduction and thank you for the invitation. There is one thing you never do is turn down an invitation from someone from Spelman. I've been personally inspired by the great leadership of Stacey Abrams and plenty of others that have gone through this illustrious college. So I just want to say that it is an honor for me to be here. And with that, I can go on for days about this, but we're here to get about voting rights. And as was mentioned before, and please interrupt me if any of the elected officials comes on and just tell me that they need to speak, because yes, today is going to be quite a day down at the Capitol. I'm currently down here right now. And we have a big vote that I'll be talking about later on. So I'm gonna go through this presentation about
Mr.
what
Bruce,
is actually
I'm gonna
going
jump in
on
right now, Mr. Bruce, because we have Senator Tanya Anderson that has joined us. So if we can go to her, we're gonna pivot quickly while she is with us. And then we will come back for your presentation as you get that on the screen.
Give her all the time.
Don't give me all the time.
I love Senator Anderson.
And I love Chris Bruce. Good morning, ladies. I apologize. I was having a few difficulties. I don't know if it was because I was in committee trying to rush out and get to the meeting, and I was all razzle dazzle trying to make sure that I was on, and I may have missed the very important passcode to get into the meeting. So thank you for having me this morning. Welcome to your Georgia State Capitol. I am also the chair of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus, which is the largest caucus in these United States. We are working, as you will hear from my brother Chris Bruce, to push back on the voter suppression laws. They don't only affect Black and brown people, but it affects all of Georgia. And unfortunately, we are seeing Jim Crow being rearing his ugly head in 2021. However, we are here for the fight. And we have allies in the ACLU and NAACP, Fair Fight, and all of our other nonprofit organizations who have committed to standing with us. And we are not going to back down. We are going to advance, and we shall recover all. I also want you to know that I introduced a couple of bills. One that will make Election Day a state holiday. Didn't get a hearing last year. I introduced it again this year. And if I don't get a hearing this year, I will keep introducing the bill until it gets a hearing and passes. I also introduced a bill that will create a Georgia Commission on Women and Girls. Now, there is a Georgia Commission on Women, but this commission will specifically be for Black women and girls because we deal with lupus and sickle cell and dense breast tissue. We deal with maternal mortality, all those things that matter to Black women and Black girls. We also deal with the higher rate of Black girls in schools being suspended or expelled or any of those things. And we are the ones who can tell our story. So I'm pushing for that legislation. Junior League is DeKalb as well as Atlanta are writing to those chairpersons, lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House to give us a hearing on that bill so that it can pass. If we don't get that, I will definitely ask for a study committee, and I will be looking to our Spelman sisters for a seat at the table to help push that agenda. I want to again welcome you. Thank you to Senator Gail Davenport, who is my seatmate, but also a DeKalb and a colleague in the Senate. And I so appreciate her leadership on Spelman Day every year. And I look forward to our work together in the community. Thank you so much for having me, and enjoy the day.
Thank you. Mr. Bruce.
Yes, I cannot speak more highly of Senator Anderson and the work that she's done. She's one of the people who are down at the Capitol every day fighting for your rights, especially your right to vote. So thank you, Senator Anderson. You're my leader. Always have been, always will be.
Likewise.
Let's jump back into our presentation. Talk about how the ACLU literally put a chapter together in the South, in Atlanta, to make sure that people's right to vote were actually being stabilized. We started off as the center for the nation when it came to voting rights, and it eventually came into an affiliate of the ACLU of Georgia. So when we say voting rights is within our DNA, it literally is within our DNA. And we envision protecting the right to vote for all Georgians, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of your race, creed, disabilities, anything. All Georgians have the right to vote. And any opposing legislation that makes it harder for you to vote, which I'll talk about later on, and protecting vote by mail, especially during this time when we do have a global pandemic, and supporting legislation to make sure that voting is more accessible. There's a lot of misinformation out there, so I want to give you some real information. And that's what happened in this last voting cycle. There are over 7.6 million Georgians who are registered to vote in the state of Georgia. And a lot of this has to do with automatic voter registration that has led to an increase of over 1 million Georgians that have been able to vote since 2016. That was done by the government. There's been a lot of other great things that have been done by Stacey Abrams, who has gotten people to register to vote, but by far, these 1 million Georgians have been done by automatic voter registration. The reason why I'm bringing that up, and I'll talk about it more, is because that's in jeopardy right now. The November 2020 election, you had over 2 million people who voted early within the November election. That's at stake this upcoming election. And mail-in ballots. Over 1 million people voted by mail. A new record in the state of Georgia. That's being jeopardized this year alone, too. And the runoffs that are happening. Still breaking barriers when it comes to being accessible for voting and more people's voices being heard. So we know that following the 2012 election, politicians across the nation started engaging in voter suppression. I said 2012, right? That's before voter suppression even became a buzzword. This has been going on for quite some time. And in reality, voter suppression has been happening since Black people have been able to vote back in 1870. So this is nothing new. It just continuously changes in different forms. And again, the ACLU of Georgia in this state has been at the forefront. What have we done? If you remember Randolph County in 2018, when they tried to close 7 out of 9 polling precincts, where most of those polling precincts were in majority Black counties, we were there. We defeated bills in the state legislature to reduce polling location hours in Atlanta and sought to reduce weekend voting statewide. Back then, I was the leader of that coalition. That happened in 2017. We had actually had back then Reverend Raphael Warnock, who spoke very vehemently against this bill, who's now Senator Raphael Warnock. So these are the type of people, juggernauts in our field, who have been doing this for so long because it continuously comes up. The Fulton County Board of Elections, you keep hearing about them all the time. We've stopped them from closing polling precincts as well, especially in African-American communities where senior citizens were located and they would have been disenfranchised. And this year during the Georgia General Assembly, we knew what was going to happen after the 2020 election. And we stayed steadfast of saying any bill that goes against being able to be accessible for voting, we're going to stand against. Currently, my count is over 60 anti-voting bills in your state legislature. Normally, on a normal year, there's nothing normal at the Capitol, as Senator Anderson would know. You'll normally get about 10 or 12. So having 60 is literally an onslaught of your bills. You'll have people focusing on certain things in the media, but I'm telling you, there are so many things that are going down at the Capitol. And I want to go into certain bills that actually are our priority bills that we've deduced could actually pass and impact you and your community. We'll start with Senate Bill 69. This is the repeal of automatic voter registration. Remember what I was talking about before. Automatic voter registration, this registers voters or updates their voter registration information when eligible Georgians apply for their driver's license, renews it, or anytime that you really interact with DDS, the Department of Driving Services. So under the current system right now that's been happening since 2016, Georgians who submit their information through the Department of Driving Services will automatically be registered to vote. They indicate that they are opting to actually get out of that system. You have to literally tell them, I do not want to register to vote, and check a box with that. So again, over 1 million people have been registered for through this type of system, and it happened in 2016 under Governor Deal. So this is one of the ways that we've actually increased people who are on the voting rolls. So it's been successful. The Secretary of State even said last October that 5 million voters out of the 7.5 million total were able to register or update their voter registration information through this automatic voter registration. The automatic voter registration also saves money. So we're talking about something that would be over 4.5 million per election cycle to do this. You're saving Georgia's money that could go elsewhere, such as education, healthcare, and fighting a global pandemic that we're currently going over. So what I want to do is actually tell you, Senate Bill 69 repeals this altogether. When I say repeal, it eliminates it by law. It was put in by Governor Deal through an administrative procedure. The General Assembly is actually looking into repealing it altogether. I've talked about how beneficial this has been for our state, for people being able to vote. This is something that you really need to pay attention to. Out of these over 60 anti-voting bills, this one is going to have an impact on everyone, especially in the African-American community. I'm going to go to Senate Bill 241. Probably heard about this one. It's another omnibus voting bill. When I talk about omnibus voting bills, it's literally a piece of legislation that has so many other pieces of legislation thrown into it. It's a soup bowl of bad things altogether. What Senate Bill 241 does is dramatically restricts voting via absentee ballots, something that people have been able to use, especially people in the African-American community have been able to use during this global pandemic safely. So no excuse absentee balloting would be repealed. You must have one of 6 excuses to vote absentee. One of 6. Currently, we have an absolutely no excuse type of situation. You request it, they go through it. Now they want to give you a government permission slip to say when you can vote by mail and when you cannot vote by mail. You should never have the government intruding on your right to vote like that. So we also have required to be absent during early voting and election day, working in elections, any type of physical disability, religious holidays. These are the things that are currently in the bill. What shouldn't be in the bill is this altogether. There's no reason why, and let me put it this way. We would be joining the minority of states to have excuses to do absentee voting instead of the supermajority of states, which says just tell us you want to mail in your ballots. You will also have to put in your absentee application. It requires a driver's license or an ID number. There are a significant amount of Georgians who do not have a driver's license. Last time I checked, it was over 250,000. These are individuals who would not be able to vote by mail simply because they do not have a copy of the ID. When they come back and say, well, IDs are simple, well, you can get a voter ID cheaply, or actually you don't have to pay the cost for it. Well, a lot of people do not have access to transportation to get down there or to take a day off from work to do that. Those are the least of these that we have to be thinking about when it comes to being able to vote and literally having it accessible for all. Your absentee ballot envelope must also be signed by a witness and include a photocopy ID. They are trying to make it as difficult as possible for you to be able to vote by absentee ballot. So you have to have a witness, which is not smart during the global pandemic, again, of having somebody else there, and include a copy of your photo ID. I don't know about you, I don't have a printer or scanner at home because you literally have to copy your ID, scan it, then print it out and include that in another piece of paper. A lot more time and effort that is not needed because they have not said anything has contributed fraud at all. So there's really no excuse for this bill at all. Speaking of no excuse, last thing I want to say about this, if you have an opportunity, Senate Bill 241 will be heard at the Capitol today. I will be speaking against it. It will be heard at 4:45 down here at the state Capitol. I can give you more information about where to go within the Capitol about it later. House Bill 531 kind of does the same thing as Senate Bill 241. And this one, though, it really guts early voting and Sunday voting, the Souls to the Polls program that I was talking about before. We defeated that bill 2 years ago with Reverend Raphael Warnock. Now it's come back, and it always seems to come back. And what it does is really attack Souls to the Polls programs where you see an uptick of Black churches that actually go and vote. If this bill passes, that will stop that from happening. It also disenfranchises election day voters, which throws out valid ballots cast in county to people who are not assigned to their polling precinct. How you break this down is when you go on election day, you're assigned a polling precinct. All of y'all are voters, so you know that. So you go to your polling precinct. Let's say for some reason you make a mistake and go to another polling precinct. You are still eligible to vote, and they'll give you a provisional ballot and allow you to vote there and fill it out. You just have to be determined to be an eligible voter. This takes this completely out of the atmosphere and saying you will not be able to, your provisional ballot will not be cast and it will not be counted. This is going to disenfranchise tens of thousands of voters who actually do vote out of their polling precinct on election day for whatever reason. The thing is, you've already spent hundreds of millions of dollars on new voting machines and new technology. You should be able to vote anywhere within your county. That's what we're looking for at the ACLU of Georgia. Really, anywhere in the state of Georgia, you should be able to vote. There's no reason in 2021 that our technology lags behind, except that they do not want you to vote. And lastly, House Bill 531 restricts vote by mail. It forces your absentee ballot to, again, a photocopy and mail-in sensitive information like it does in Senate Bill 241. They're attacking absentee ballots by mail altogether. Why? Because you had a record turnout and it really turned the election. So what I say is stay vigilant within all this. I know Senator Anderson is no longer on the Zoom chat, but I want to wrap up by saying who these bills are targeting. Let me go ahead and get into this. These bills are actually targeting certain people doing certain things. What? So we're talking about Black and brown people, individuals who are disabled, or again, have compromised immune systems, low income voters who cannot make their way to polling precincts, and any voter who does not have access to a copy and printer, like myself. So over 50% of Georgians who vote by mail are over the age of 60 or physically disabled. Why is this important? Again, immunocompromised and physically disabled, not being able to get out and cast their ballots together. These are the people that we really need to talk to. And what we've seen is Black voters are more likely to take advantage of early voting as well. So any attack on early voting or aimed specifically at disenfranchising Black voters, we are against. You're asking, how can we support? Right? I'm not telling everybody quit their jobs and become a lobbyist and come down here to the state council. What I am asking you to do is contact your state legislator and demand that they vote no on these bills and any bill that goes against voter suppression. You need to contact the governor. I'm making this prediction right now. There's going to be a voting bill that's going to make it to the governor's desk. You need to have the pressure on him right now of saying you need to veto any type of voter suppression legislation that comes through. And if you want to know more information about this, just follow the ACLU of Georgia on our social media. So like I said before, I'm going to end on this as far as what Senator Tanya Anderson, who you just heard from, has said so eloquently. You'll always hear that Georgia is #1 for business in the entire United States. A lot of that has to deal with Black women creating their own businesses and jobs here in this state, Black women. We can be #1 in business. What Georgia really needs to become is #1 in voting. We can be that model for the entire nation of saying voting should be easy and accessible to all citizens. Let's make sure that happens. Thank you for your time. And again, if you need anything, please let me know.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bruce, for that presentation. That was outstanding. And we will make sure that we do our part in ensuring that voter suppression bills do not get passed through. Spelman women will take up that cause.
Oh, I know you will. I have everything, because when Black women come down to the Capitol, especially Spelman women, they know. So please, please make your voices heard.
Thank you. And I'm just scanning to see if there are any other legislators that have joined us at this time. And I know that Senator Davenport is still across the street. She will be with us once she presents her bill and comes back. So if there are none, we'll go on to our second legislative presentation.
Good, impactful information. So we're excited to hear even more from our next presenter. Ms. Laura Harker is a senior policy analyst at GBPI, where she's responsible for researching and reporting on Georgia's health policies and related spending. Prior to her work with this institution, she conducted public health research, policy analysis, and advocacy on food insecurity and poverty issues as a fellow with the Congressional Hunger Center in Washington, D.C. She produced policy briefs and reports to provide evidence-based recommendations for state and national lawmakers. She'd worked with the Office of the Associate Director for Policy of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention as a graduate student to conduct policy assessments and impact analysis in support of the National Prevention Strategy. She is a graduate of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and holds a master's degree in public health policy from Emory University. Please, let's welcome Ms. Harker.
Thank you, Denise, and hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, and I'm excited to talk to you all today about some healthcare priorities down at the Capitol. I don't have slides because everything's changing very rapidly, but did want to walk you through some of the key priorities we're looking at and things you can do to support certain bills and budget efforts to go forward this session. So really healthcare and education are over 70% of the state budget. Healthcare is about 25% of the budget. So budget is really a huge conversation when we look at healthcare. And the governor this year has required all agencies to basically keep the same budget that they had last year. And last year we saw a lot of big cuts to a lot of the healthcare agencies, especially around behavioral health services and services for people with disabilities. As well as the public health budget, which we are seeing more money come in through the federal government, but not a lot of state investment. So I think overall, some big priorities is trying to get a broader group of advocacy and advocates around increasing revenue and increasing the amount of money that we have to make important healthcare investments. For example, I think with public health, we have received a lot of new money for COVID response, of course, from the federal government, about $1 billion. That's really helping to support vaccine administration, testing, a lot of the work on lab capacity. And that has been great, but the governor has decided not to put any new state dollars into public health. And we know that the system has been underfunded and also understaffed for many years, but continuing to not make increased investments in that area will only continue to harm that system as we move through the rest of the pandemic response and beyond that. So I think there's definitely conversation about encouraging lawmakers to put additional funding into public health, and the House of Representatives has made some moves to do that through increasing funding for staffing capacity and also modernizing the vaccine system, tracking system, which has had some issues. And generally public health systems are not made to track all of this data that we've had to track during the pandemic. So there's some start around that, but there's ongoing needs there to support public health. Also with behavioral health and services for people with disabilities, there's been at least $70 million in cuts to the agency that they're still going to be looking at if we don't restore those cuts in this year. Some of those key programs include things like peer support services. Those are peer specialists that work with people with substance use disorder. They're people living in recovery who are able to support people who are also going through their recovery. And that's been a really successful model, but some of those services have been cut. We've also seen cuts to adult mental health services, which has been, as we know, with the pandemic and the increased need around mental health services, is not the time to be making cuts. We need to be investing more in those mental health services for adults and children. We also have seen some services for people with disabilities face some cuts around just the services that people with disabilities may need in their homes and in their communities to go to school and to go to work. So those are also important services that we want to see restored and prioritize those to be restored. So looking at just two of the calls to action that we're making around those budget issues and restoring those cuts is one, calling on the governor to use the rainy day funds that we have as a state. The governor and the current governor and the previous governor have all been really proud of all the rainy day funds that we've saved up to be used for an emergency. And with the mental health needs, with the public health needs, we think this is now that time to use those funds, which we have not yet tapped into. So that's one call to action that we have to the governor to use those funds to restore cuts to services like healthcare, but also across the budget like education, which is also seeing cuts. Then we also are asking lawmakers to raise revenue. We have federal money coming in from the relief packages, but that is not enough to cover a lot of the needs. So I think revenue can be raised by lawmakers by, one example is through tobacco tax legislation. We have the second lowest rate of tobacco tax or tax on cigarette packs. It's about 37 cents per pack that we charge in Georgia. For context, the national average is about $1.88. So we have quite some room to grow. We haven't updated this in many years, over a decade. So this would be one way to raise over about $500 million in revenue, money that could be used for healthcare, education, and many of those other priorities. And that bill is HB 394, which would raise the tobacco tax by $1.50 and bring us to that national average. Another big issue is definitely around Medicaid. Medicaid is the health insurance program that currently serves about 1 in 5 Georgians, we currently have not expanded Medicaid. We're one of 12 states that have not done so. There is legislation introduced to fully expand Medicaid. So that's legislation to also look at supporting HB 630 is the bill in the House, and SB 172 in the Senate. So the governor has not taken up the full Medicaid expansion. The governor's Patients First Act plan is to instead do a partial expansion of Medicaid, but it also has work requirements, so requiring people to report 80 hours of work per month and also pay premiums. And we know that those are barriers for people. Even if you are working, you may not have internet access, you may not have the ability to go through just the whole bureaucratic process or even know that it's a requirement. So we've seen in states like Arkansas that have done this type of work requirement on Medicaid, they've seen 17,000 people lose coverage as a result of this. People who are often already working or caregiving or in school, or doing many other things. So that is a big concern. This question around, will we have work requirements attached to this plan, which begins July 1st of this year? It would start enrolling people July 1st of this year. So the federal government has said that they're re-examining this work requirement, whether we can include it or not.
Hey, Laura, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No problem.
Yes, hi, this is Rashida. We actually have Senator Gloria Butler on the line, and I want to introduce her. She is the Senate Majority Leader. Senator, are you there? I mean, she's the Senate Minority Leader, I'm sorry. Yeah. Unmute yourself. We see you.
It is. I'm
There you
used
go.
to hitting the screen. I'm trying to hit the screen to unmute. Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing? You hear me now?
Yes, I hear you. Thank you.
Okay, great. I just want to say congratulations on your celebration. What year is this? Are you not hearing me?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
What year is this celebration?
This, I would have to pass that to Adrian. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's okay.
This is my first time.
Just want to say congratulations. I've been sitting in a committee since a little after 10. And we just adjourned. So I didn't want to disappoint Gail, my colleague, by not showing up. So here I am. Is there anything special that you all would like to hear from us? Oh, yes, I'm fighting on election bills. Fighting. I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails from people all over Georgia resisting this so-called change for the better. It's not a change. These are not things that we needed. We needed to fix those things that happened during the election, and all of these bills could not be what we need. I mean, it's nearly 100 bills, if not more. And it could not have been that many problems that happened during the election. It's just that the Republicans lost and they're mad and they're going to punish us for winning.
Mm-hmm. What are some of your recommendations that we can do to help, in that?
I wish you could join our committee and give us some more votes. We need more people to run for office and take back the majority. That's the only way we're going to be able to combat this bad stuff that's happening. But you can talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to your sororities, talk to your kids at school. Just talk it up and know that we're working for the people of the state, because there's just not much we can do except speak out against it. one of my daughters texted me this morning and said I look good on TV this morning. I said, well, what was I talking about? And she said absentee voting. We just cannot allow them to take away absentee voting and have to provide information through the mail of our personal information. It's just unheard of. But anyway, I am, for those of you that don't know me, may not have ever seen me, I'm Gloria Butler, the Senate Democratic Minority Leader. First time we've ever had a woman in this position. And I tell you, the men are struggling with how to work with me, how to deal with me. They don't know what to do with me. But I'm representing well, and I'm working hard for all of those that would come behind me, because I'm grateful for those that have gone ahead of me and laid out the road work for us to be able to follow. And so on this day, as you celebrate, just know that Gloria Butler here is here at this Capitol working for the betterment of all Georgians. So thank you so much for allowing me to come in late and say hello to you. And I hope that your celebration today is a good and exciting one.
Great. Thank you so much, Senator Butler. We appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. And I will pass it back over to Laura.
Yes, thank you. So kind of switching gears a little bit back to some of the health work, but definitely connected to a lot of those issues as well, just around making sure more people have access to healthcare and are able to have that right to healthcare. So around Medicaid expansion, there are some opportunities as well for you all to be involved in advocacy around those issues. We have the Cover Georgia Coalition, which is a group of 70 plus organizations and also individuals who are interested in putting more pressure on Georgia to expand Medicaid. So coverga.org is a great place for you to go to get updates on action alerts, which we are expecting more action on this issue because of our senators, Senator Ossoff and Warnock, who have been advocating for federal relief and federal incentives for states like Georgia to finally expand. As part of the federal COVID relief package, there is some additional money put aside for states that have not expanded to actually get them to take it up. So we'll be putting a lot more pressure on the governor and legislators to take advantage of this new money that would more than pay for the cost of actually expanding Medicaid. So that's a big opportunity in the next coming weeks, as soon as we see whether the federal relief package passes in the Senate, which we're expecting in the next week or two. So just other bills at the state level at the Capitol to keep an eye on, especially ones that really address equity issues. Some of the ones I have for you to look at around environmental health, there's a bill, HB 339, which would create a environmental justice commission. And it basically would require developers seeking permits in neighborhoods with people of color and low income families to make sure that they're taking actions to mitigate health hazards. And we know that's a big issue. A lot of developers locate chemical plants in landfills and other toxic emissions in Black communities. So this commission would really help to hold those community developers accountable to protect communities. There's also HR 52, which looks at creating a study commission around childhood lead exposure. So we know that with housing quality issues, people, if they're living in older homes or if they have a landlord that's not actually meeting the standards of housing or responding to their concerns, lead exposure is a big concern. So this is another area around environmental health equity that bill would help address and find some solutions for. Another big issue is maternal health and just the statistics around Black women being 3 to 4 times more likely to die in that first year after birth than white women in Georgia. And there's been a study commission around that. We did successfully extend Medicaid coverage for women in that postpartum period up to 6 months. Originally, if you gave birth in Georgia, your Medicaid coverage would end 2 months after delivery. So that really missed that critical window in those 2 to 12 months where women were still seeing morbidities or chronic illnesses or deaths in those 2 to 12 months. So we have 2 pieces of legislation that would help extend Medicaid from 6 months to 12 months. And that's HB 72 and SB 173. And then we also did see HB 146 pass, which was paid parental leave for state employees. So that also is an issue that is important to the maternal health conversation. And then 2 other pieces of legislation, well, 3, around diabetes coverage and care. There's HB 73, which would cap the cost of insulin at $50 a month for private insurance plans and for Medicaid. So basically helping people save money on insulin, which we know the cost of that have really gone up a lot and really affect all communities, but Black communities and chronic illnesses. Seeing those disparities there would also help Black communities. Also mental health, there's parity legislation. So essentially requiring insurers that they don't deny behavioral health care or mental health care, holding those insurance companies accountable to make sure that people are able to receive mental health services. And that's HB 49. And then lastly, there was also some legislation to declare racism a public health crisis in Georgia. That's HR 78, which is also something to support just as a declaration at the state level. We have some local and county level declarations, but to really make that known at the state level that lawmakers see that as an issue so we can prioritize it in our response. So those are some of the main bills from me.
Thank you so much for that information. We really appreciate that with the health component. And so now we're going to move on to our next presenter from the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. And this is going to be a focus on the higher education piece. Jennifer Lee is the Senior Policy Analyst for Higher Education, where she focuses on state policies that provide Georgians greater opportunity to complete higher education credential regardless of race, ethnicity, and family income. Prior to working with the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute in 2017, this is when she joined the Institute, she was also she was a research associate and director of the Texas Kids Count Project at the Center of Public Policy Priorities in Austin, Texas. She is a graduate of Wellesley College and holds a master's in public affairs from the Lyndon B. Johnson School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas at Austin. Please let's welcome Ms. Lee to the virtual stage.
Hello, can you see me now? All right. Thank you so much for having me today. I am very sorry that we could not be together in person, but I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you in this virtual setting. That's a pretty good introduction of my work. My focus in higher education at the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute is primarily around providing greater equity in college completion, and that's along race, ethnicity, family income, geography, and gender. And a lot of that work has been around looking at barriers related to college affordability, because we know from both research and talking to students that, of course, money is a very large barrier to completing college successfully for many students, and that also that those challenges follow graduates after they've completed college in the form of debt that becomes a barrier to economic opportunity and well-being. Some of the research around student debt, there's just such a strong and clear case that student debt in our state and our country is a much bigger barrier for Black students in particular, and students who come from low wealth backgrounds, whose families do not have access to that wealth and savings for historical reasons. And so that is another aspect of the work that we do around college affordability is what happens after students are able to complete their college credentials. So I just want to echo what my colleague Laura Harker spoke about in terms of the importance of the state budget and how it maintains the very large cuts that the state passed last year to colleges and universities and throughout the state budget. And also the opportunity that we have to use our rainy day funds and reserve funds in order to help fund the services that Georgians need, and that not doing so would really be a dereliction of duty to not use the funds that we have saved for a rainy day, and today is that rainy day. So just want to echo those comments that Laura made. I'm going to review today just some of the legislation that has popped up over the last couple of months. And the bills seem to fall into a few different categories. There's a few bills that are related to Hope scholarships and financial aid in the state in particular. Then there are some other affordability bills that are not Hope Scholarship related. And then there are a group of bills that are related to technical colleges, which I'll also review briefly. And of course, there's always a lot going on in higher ed, but again, we take the lens sort of looking through this college affordability and equity lens. So first, in financial aid, there have actually been 2 bills sponsored that would remove or de-emphasize the way that SAT and ACT scores are used in awarding Hope scholarships. So what we've seen because of the pandemic is that many students could not take the SATs or ACTs, and we know that a lot of institutions use those for 2 purposes, one for admissions purposes, and then also a lot of organizations use them for scholarship purposes. So the university system, our public university system in Georgia, removed it temporarily for admissions purposes, and a lot of other private institutions changed their policies around that as well. And what the proposed legislation would do, one bill would remove the SAT, ACT requirements altogether, and then another bill would remove it after students were in college for a period of time and then met certain college GPA requirements. There has, so everyone's on the same page, and to remind everyone that the SAT, ACT requirements for the Zell-Miller Scholarship here in Georgia have not always been in place. It's actually is a relatively new requirement that happened in 2011. And what we really see when we look at those numbers in who receives those Zell-Miller scholarships, which is a full tuition scholarship, is that the students who receive full tuition scholarships are predominantly from high income and white families backgrounds. And so we are actually giving the most state dollars in financial aid in many times to high income, high wealth families who don't really need the scholarship money as much as other families do. So that is a bill that would address those inequities, or there are 2 bills. And during the hearing, it was very interesting to hear lawmakers themselves bringing up that Representative Jasmine Clark and also Representative Stacey Evans both stated that, that they themselves did not test well and would not have received the scholarship. And of course, both of them are elected members of the General Assembly. Representative Jasmine Clark went on to earn a PhD in microbiology from Emory University, and Representative Stacey Evans has a law degree as well. So just sort of, bringing across the point that those tests are not necessarily a good measure or prediction of how well a student is going to do in school or in life. And so that is a couple of bills that I would highlight. The second sort of batch of bills I'll talk about are related to technical college. And I wanted to highlight them here, even if technical college or technical college students are not a community that you engage with regularly, because I think there are actually a lot of misconceptions about technical college students. And one of them is that they're all men. And actually 62% of technical college students are women. The majority of technical college students are women. And many of them, you know, I think people think like that all technical college programs are kind of men doing welding programs, but really the most popular programs are in health sciences, and a lot of that enrollment is taken up by women who are enrolled in technical colleges. So there are a couple of bills that would affect technical college students in particular. One would restore HOPE grants to a full tuition support, which is again what we had prior to 2011. And that would affect nearly 30,000 students currently, even at our very low technical college enrollment levels now, which have been impacted by the pandemic. And then there have been other bills that would also expand HOPE grant eligibility to more technical college students who are not eligible for them right now. And then another bill related to technical colleges that I would just point out is that a bill that would waive the tuition and fees for both current and former foster youth under the age of 28 who are in some type of state-sponsored independent living program who are enrolled in technical colleges. And then the last group of bills that I would just point out, one is related to DACA recipients in the state of Georgia. And currently in the state of Georgia, those students who may have resided in the state for virtually their entire lives and have gone to school in the state and graduated from high school in the state have to pay out-of-state tuition rates. And so they are not Georgia residents. And so there have been some iterations of this bill, but the basic idea of the bill would be to bring those tuition rates down for those DACA recipients who are residents of Georgia, longstanding residents of Georgia. And then the last bill that I'll highlight is really as an effort for a study committee to look at how our state prepares the future workforce with a specific focus on looking at need-based financial aid or the lack thereof in the state. So Georgia is one of 2 states in the country who does not have any need-based financial aid. And this has been, I think, a very just large blind spot in the state's policy structure of how we do financial aid, because of the fact that we had such a very large HOPE scholarship and generally accessible HOPE scholarship program for so many years, that it's something that the state just never paid attention to. And I think it has long past time for the state to really look at, you know, how do we best support students to completing college and make sure that just because your parents can't financially help you pay for college, that is not a barrier for you to be able to learn and grow as an individual and fulfill your potential. And so that is a study committee that hopefully will examine that issue very closely. So one last thing that I will note before I close is that there are a lot of issues, very important issues going on at the state capitol. And I have found that it has been difficult sometimes to get legislators to pay attention to college affordability. And so, so one thing that we are asking folks, and I'll share a link, is that will help just send emails and letters to lawmakers to raise the urgency of the issue. We know that it is an urgent issue. I mean, I talk to students all the time, and it's very urgent for them that they are able to pay for a college. But it is also very important for the state as we are thinking about what types of jobs and opportunities and just future we're going to have for people in our state as they want to pursue their dreams. And often that involves education beyond high school. So I will drop that link here. We've made it very easy for you, but of course, always encourage you to reach out to your legislators about the issues that are of importance to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer, for all of that information. And if you don't mind, just go through and check the chat. There were a couple of questions regarding which bills. If you can place those numbers in the chat for us, that will assist. We now want to bring to the virtual floor Minority Leader James Beverly and Representative Kim Schofield, if they're still on, to bring greetings. Representative Beverly, you're on.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Hi, y'all. Hey, y'all. Thank y'all for giving me an opportunity to say hello, and good to see your faces. As you know, we are currently in the middle of session. We just had a quick recess as we attempt to deal with House Bill 531, which is the voting suppression bill of the 20th century. As you guys know, we flipped Georgia for the most part, and it's trending blue. And Republicans got upset about what we did. And instead of taking an honest loss that they lost, they decided to change the rules. And part of the rules is to restrict our ability to vote, restrict our access and limit our abilities to vote. And so we're in that fight today. And as we think about what y'all are having in this virtual thing about turning the page, this is a time to turn a page. And we got to turn a page in a way in which we say we're not going to take it anymore. And so although this day is a terrible day, but House Bill 531 to come up, it's a great day. And it's a great day because I think we have a chance to reset who we are as Georgians. I like to consider us the cultural bandits, the people who are committed to culture with great zeal. And I could think of no better cultural bandits than the women of Spelman. And so thank y'all very much for giving me an opportunity to speak. There'll be more that we'll call on you for to help us advocate for or against bills that could set us back, but we can't go back. And as we turn the page, I look forward to supporting you in every way I can. So thank y'all. I got to get back to the floor. I think Representative Schofield is on the line as well. And I'll talk to y'all very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think Representative Schofield had to get back. She hopped off, but she was able to put everything into the chat. So as we move on with our program, Denise, I'm going to ask you to go to our final legislative presentation, which should take us to about 12:15, and then we will take a break to have remarks from Dr. Campbell. I apologize. That's going to be Pamela Cooper.
Exact. Thank you.
Pam. Well, let me jump in here. Amanda Hollowell she is a campaign strategist for the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. And we've heard such great information regarding healthcare, education, and voter rights. Amanda is going to tie everything together for us and talk to us about advocacy. What is it that we can actually do to put these things into action as we continue our working relationship with the Capitol? Amanda?
Hi, welcome. I was going to do a PowerPoint, but I think I'm going to stay on brand with everyone and just talk to y'all about, honestly, what public policy looks like for you. Public policy is a social agreement as well as implementing laws. And there's different ways that we engage in the legislative session here in Georgia. And, just to have everyone understand, our lawmakers make our laws or present bills that represent the public's needs, most of the public's needs. And then folks, can actually sway them or inform them that we need these laws to be available. I'm going to pause for a second because I do see a senator who's just joined. If y'all want to take a break to let them have the floor, because I know they only have a short amount of time before they have to go back.
Absolutely. Senator, will you please come on and greet us? Oh, that's Senator Davenport.
Oh, are you ready for me?
Senator Davenport, we are always ready for you. So we will pivot quickly here and have Senator Davenport and Dr. Mary Schmidt Campbell, our president of Spelman College, come on to the virtual stage. Senator Davenport, why don't you start?
Thank you so much. I was in a committee meeting presenting a bill on education for our youth. But good morning to all of you and welcome to the 2021 Spelman College Day at the Georgia State Capitol. I am Senator Gail Davenport, Senate District 44, and I'm delighted to welcome my Spelman sisters today to this virtual meeting and certainly honored to co-host this event with the National Alumni Association of Spelman College, the Georgia chapters. We are in a global pandemic, COVID-19, the coronavirus. That is our major concern. Over 500,000 Americans have died due to this pandemic, and 3 companies have a vaccine to get approximately 300 million Americans vaccinated as quickly as possible. Pfizer, Moderna, and now Johnson & Johnson. Advocating for Medicaid expansion is still a priority. An increase in the minimum wage to $15 per hour is a necessity. Parity for minority and small business owners. Getting students back in the classroom safely so they can get an excellent education. And expanding voting rights, which means opposing voter registration bills are issues at the forefront of this legislative session. But the political landscape in this nation has changed. We have a Democratic president, President Joe Biden, and a Black woman, Kamala Harris, as the Vice President of the United States of America, and 2 new senators from Georgia, a Black man and a Jewish man. In this legislative session and all across the country, the Republican legislators are introducing voter suppression bills. So today, as we welcome you, let me acknowledge former members of the Georgia General Assembly who are Spelman grads. They may not be on the call, and they might, but former representatives, Attorney Henrietta Turnquest, Judge Betty Ann Childers Hart, Miss Alicia Thomas, and Attorney Stacey Abrams, former minority leader of the Georgia House of Representatives. We have 22 Democrats in the Georgia State Senate out of 56. So today we are delighted to have greetings and remarks from members of our congressional delegation, the Georgia Senate Minority Leader, the Georgia House Minority Leader, the chair of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus, which is the largest one in the nation, and other legislators to bring greetings and discuss issues that affect us all and give their perspective on the local and national landscape. The experts from ACLU and Georgia Budget and Policy Institute have a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate them sharing with us today. As we begin Women's History Month today, we recognize Spelman College as a true leader in educating women and producing the brightest and best in every field and contributing greatly to the society. I am honored to pay tribute to Spelman by presenting a resolution to Dr. Mary Schmidt Campbell, the 10th president of the institution. I'll read just a few excerpts from the resolution. This is it. Recognizing March 1st, 2021 as Spelman College Day at the Capitol and for other purposes. Whereas Spelman College was founded in 1881 as the Atlanta Baptist Female Seminary, which began Spelman College in 1924. It is accredited by the Commission on Colleges of the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, and it is a member of the Atlanta University Center Consortium. Whereas Spelman College has long been recognized as a leading educator of women of African descent, it is now named among the top 100 liberal arts colleges in the nation and is one of the most selective women colleges in the United States. Whereas Spelman College has maintained its commitment to her students during the COVID-19 global pandemic by safely hosting fewer on-campus students, offering virtual classes for remote students, rolling back tuition rates to keep costs down, and hosting virtual events and activities for students and alumni. Whereas Spelman's 10th president, Dr. Mary Smith Campbell, is to be recognized for her commitment and continuing efforts to elevate young women and to attract scholars from around the world to Spelman College and our great state of Georgia. And whereas virtual Spelman Day at the Capitol is proudly hosted by Senator Gail Davenport, class of 70, and the National Alumni Association Spelman College, with Georgia chapters all being in Athens, Atlanta, Augusta, Columbus, Decatur, Savannah, and West Georgia. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body commend Spelman College, Dr. Mary Smith Campbell, President, college faculty, students, staff, alumni, and friends of Spelman College for their many years of dedicated service to excellence in education, and to be recognized March 1st, 2020 as Spelman College Day at the Georgia State Capitol. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Senate is authorized and directed to make appropriate copies of this resolution available for distribution to Spelman College. Congratulations, Spelman and Dr. Campbell.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Senator Davenport. Now, I hear that this is a very special day also because it's your birthday. So happy birthday, Senator Davenport. Spelman class of 1970.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful resolution. And here we all are. Hello to everybody who's here. We're at the intersection of the end of Black History Month and the beginning of Women's History Month. And that's what Spelman represents, Black women all over the world. And I am so proud as I listen to what you're doing, Senator Davenport, to what Representative Beverly is doing, Senator Anderson, Senator Butler, to carry on the fight for voting rights and to be a warrior against voter suppression. The threat is real and the stakes are high. And I just want you to know that Spelman College and all of our students, faculty, and staff stand with you. So please do not hesitate to call on us because we recognize you as our leaders and being at the forefront of a very important fight. I'm also very grateful for all of our alumni, Adrienne Lance Lucas, who is the president of our Atlanta chapter of NAASC, and all of the chapters that have joined together today to present and to host Spelman at the Capitol. Athens, Albany, Augusta, Columbus, Decatur, Savannah, West Georgia, and of course, Atlanta. Now, you know, we have been going through a lot during the past 10 months. And I always say you can take the measure of an institution, you can take the measure of a person by how well they respond to a crisis. And during this crisis, our Spelman alumni have closed ranks, locked arms, and they have been there for our students. When our students had to leave campus, they were there with an emergency fund to help support them when they were suffering from food insecurity or housing insecurity, or they needed laptops and computers in order to conduct their online learning. And of course, they were there to hand out scholarships to our students so our students could stay in school. And as a result, Spelman witnessed in the fall an enrollment increase of 5%. So you have really helped our students stay the course. And as Senator Davenport said, the college itself was able to make itself more affordable by lowering tuition, lowering fees, and giving out more financial aid than we have been able to in the past. And all of that has worked. And you should be very pleased to know, Spelman community, that as a result, our applications for next year
are the highest in Spelman's history, 10,500 applications and still counting. So bravo to all of our alumni who have made that excellence possible. And we have lots of things that are exciting that are coming on the horizon. We take our responsibility to our community very seriously. And we have been working with Morehouse School of Medicine to provide the parking lot of Milligan as a vaccination site. And now all of the AUC is working with the governor's office in the state of Georgia to make the entire AUC a vaccination site, so that our community members can come to a place that they trust. So we can demonstrate to our community that vaccines are a safe, effective way for us to combat this long-standing pandemic. So lots is going on at Spelman. And we have, I know that we have students who are going to want to join in the ACLU, join in their representatives, work with the entire community to make sure that we're protecting our rights, make sure that we're keeping Spelman affordable. And on that note, I'm very happy to say, tune in 2 weeks from now, and we will be announcing the public launch of our capital campaign. And we're going to have some very exciting news at that time. So we are weathering a storm, but we know we have such a wonderful community of people who are our ark. You are there for us in the most difficult times. And we know that we can just hold on, and we will not only get through this, but we will flourish and thrive. So thank you once again, Senator Davenport, for that wonderful resolution. I can't wait to hang it up in my office and circulate it to everybody on social media. And thank you, Adrian, for leading this event. We really enjoy coming to this event every year. And this year, even though it's virtual, it's just as good as it's always been. Thank you.
Thank you. I see that we have Representative Houston Gaines on. Representative Gaines, would you like to bring greetings?
Sure. Well, thank y'all so much for having us, and it's great to see everybody. And thank you for what Spelman does. And Madam President, it's good to see you. And it's good. Keisha Bailey from Athens. I represent parts of Athens, have Clark, Oconee, Jackson, and Barrow counties in my district, and so it's great to have some Athenians on the line today. And always good to. I wish people could be here in person. I know this year is different. I do have my UGA tie on. I need a Spelman tie, but always good to have Athenians. So I just want to say thank you all for what you're doing. Obviously, a lot of things going on at the Capitol right now, a lot of different issues moving forward. And I think that there's a lot of really good things happening, in different areas of whether it's healthcare. This legislative session, I've been working on several healthcare related bills and also working on some issues related to domestic violence that I think, we're working to get through the House. And that's a piece of legislation I'm really excited about. I hope we can achieve. There's a gap in the current law that where dating violence is not included under family violence protective orders. And so that's a specific issue that we're working through. Also carrying a couple other bills that I think are really important. Last year we passed some really meaningful legislation on criminal justice reform to give Georgians a second chance. And Senator Anderson really led that charge. And I was honored to carry that bill in the House. We got it passed. I think it's one of the most important measures that we have passed as a General Assembly in terms of criminal justice reform to allow individuals to have their records restricted. And so, on misdemeanors. And so that's something that we work hand in hand together on. So I think a lot of really good things happening. And so just encourage people to keep in touch with your legislators in any way that we can be of help. Please reach out to us. And again, for everybody in Athens, look forward to seeing you back in the Classic City soon. And if I can ever be of help, please reach out to us anytime. So thank you all so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Representative Gaines. And I think that we will, Senator Davenport, would you like to talk just a little bit about the bill that you were presenting? And then we'll go back to Amanda Hollowell with GBPI.
Okay, and I think Senator Nan Orrock should be on with us shortly. The bill that I presented was Senate Bill 106, and it dealt with wraparound services for students. And there was a bill passed earlier, and about 2018, that dealt with wraparound services for pre-K through 12th, third grade. And this one is changed to pre-K through 12th grades. But it was related to multi-tiered system of support prior to suspension and expulsion from certain students, so as to include wraparound services for them in the multi-tiered system of support to be provided prior to expelling or assigning a student in pre-K through the 12th grade for a suspension for more than 5 consecutive days or cumulative days during a school year. And we know that that is so important. The multi-tiered system is a systemic continuous improvement framework in which database problem solving and decision making is practiced across all levels of the educational system for supporting students at multi-level of intervention. And these wraparound services provide to students, in some instances, to their families, who provide academic, social, or behavior support for students. And we're just trying to make sure that these wraparound services and the resources are there for students, so that those small children and even the ones through 12th grade will have some support there. Yes, and I think Senator Nan Orrock, that's Senate Bill 106, but Senator Nan Orrock is right here in my office. She represents, her district includes Spelman College, and she is here.
Good afternoon. This is Musical Chairs. Senator Davenport has generously offered me her seat at her computer so that I could connect with you and speak with you on Spelman Day here at the Capitol. See if they can hear. And I don't know who I'm talking. This page isn't responding. Are we still?
We can hear you.
Good. Thank you so much, Adrian. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't join earlier, and we're in the middle of our caucus meeting now, prior to going on the floor at noon. So you're used to this pandemonium down here. This isn't your first rodeo, and you know that everything goes on at the same time. So apologies earlier, I was in a committee working to pass a bill on needs-based financial aid. Is that something that we think Georgia needs? Yes. We have, there are 48 states in the country that have needs-based financial aid. Georgia is one of the 2, along with New Hampshire, that have not taken that step in any significant way. We lead on the Hope Scholarship Program, but there are so many students that are left out and left behind and cannot rely on that grades-based scholarship that the Hope provides. So I've got a study committee, SR 154, that's a joint study committee between the House and the Senate. We're trying to get it out of the House on Wednesday morning. We had a meeting already about it, and it would create the opportunity for us to get together, and along with representatives of the governor's office and House and Senate and the chancellor and the technical schools and the private colleges. I have added the private college representative to this commission, this study committee as well, just today. And so to look at it, we basically need to commit to a funding stream to fund these scholarships that are critically important to the future of the state and the future for Georgia's families. We all know the needs out there, and we know that Black and brown students are very poorly served, but poorly represented in the Hope Scholarship. And I won't go into all the numbers, but we need to do more. And I think that with all of you coming from one of the stellar, nationally known HBCUs, we're just blessed in Atlanta and in Georgia by the wealth of talent that, and I will include Morehouse as well, that the Black university higher education complex here that we can against any in the world creates an incredible talent pool and create incredible opportunities, and we need to be constantly pushing open more doors to see that talent pool is fully developed and fully acknowledged and on a path to success. So that would be the one bill I would lift up to you today in this limited amount of time, Adrian.
Thank you so much. And you've been a long time friend of Spelman. So we're so happy to have you continue to work on our behalf and all Georgians.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be with you. And I apologize that it's so brief. And you're just the what? Oh, yeah. And actually all the oxygen in the room is being taken up down here with fighting these voter suppression bills. The House is in the middle of that battle today. The newspapers are full of it. Weigh in with the governor, the speaker, the leadership in every way that you can as individuals and as alumni. And it's we just have to put our foot down and say we're not going backwards. We're not going backwards. Georgia has too much history, cradle of the civil rights movement, the birthplace and the burial place of Dr. Martin Luther King and Jr. and Coretta Scott King. And we're not going back. We're not going back. Thank you all for being resolute and all that you do and the opportunity to, and I apologize that we couldn't have us a half a day seminar, but time's not going to allow it. But thank you. And
Thank you so much.
Help in every way that I can possibly be.
Thank you. And I believe that we have U.S. Congresswoman Nikema Williams on. And so we are going to give it to her to bring us greetings and talk just a little bit about what's going on in DC.
So thank you, everyone, and I do hope you received the outreach message from our team. My name is Melanie Farah. I'm actually the Chief of Staff for Congresswoman Nikema Williams, and just wanted to share in all transparency that she's actually fallen quite ill today, suffering from the after effects of the second vaccine. But we wanted to please share our regrets that she was not able to attend this morning, but wanted to be mindful of how important it is that we shared greetings on behalf of Georgia's 5th Congressional District. Congresswoman Williams is not only a former state senator, but an HBCU grad. So this is especially important to her that she is a part of this event. It's super important to assemble the state capitol, even if virtually, to share in the HBCU agenda and voice concerns with state legislators. So I do understand and know that this is a virtual space, but she is very confident that working together, everyone will be able to forge ahead and capitalize on the theme of the day, which is turning the page of history and the next stage of advocacy and work. You don't have to be an avid cable news watcher to know about the Congresswoman's advocacy work. She's done it as a state senator, and she did it in her role with Care in Action and in her previous role with Planned Parenthood. But especially over the last 4 years, we all know what's going on. We all have paid attention to the things that have transpired in our world today. And a lot of these things have transpired due to inaction and failed policies of the last administration and some of the leaders in this country. We've been impacted by the pandemic, which has infected nearly 25 million Americans and killed over 500,000 people, disproportionately impacting Black and brown communities. Nationally, Black deaths from COVID-19 are nearly 2 times greater than what would be expected for our share of the population. So as a result of this pandemic, the current economic crisis continues to eliminate jobs and make it even more challenging for working families to put food on the table. And on top of everything else, if the domestic terrorist attack on the US Capitol complex on January 6th showed us anything, it proved and was a chilling reminder that racism, bigotry still exists. There are people who want to turn back the clock on the progress that you've all made in this country and that we've made in this country, and we can't let that happen. The knowledge gained from centuries of racism and classism and sexism have taught us that we're operating in a system that was not designed by or for the people who look like us. It's important for me to share that part of the reason that she is in Congress is to make sure that those systems are changed. Most recently, she was nominated to the Select Committee on Modernization, which will give her the opportunity to make those necessary changes so that the system as it was designed is corrected and is more reflective of who we all are as a people. It is a new day in the administration, and the new administration has already shown its intention to work for the American people. Recently, the US House of Representatives voted to approve $1.9 trillion in the American Rescue and Recovery Plan because our workers and our families and our students and our businesses can't afford to wait another day for us to play party politics with their lives. But more importantly, later today, the House is prepared to vote on HR 1, the For the People Act, so we can expand on access to the ballot box. And we know how critical that is. We know that at home right now, we're still pushing to eliminate all of the things that are in play to try and restrict our access to the ballot box. In Georgia, it's time for us to continue to take action. And we've accomplished so much over the last year while living through a pandemic. We can't let the instances of today claw all of that work back. I really am appreciative that you all have taken the time to let me speak on her behalf. And I don't want to take up all of the air in the room as I am not the Congresswoman, but I am grateful to have been allowed to be a part of this event. I wanted to just again say thank you to all of the coordinators and that she was very honored and proud to be invited by the women of Spelman College, and wanted to thank you again for allowing me to speak on her behalf.
Thank you so much. This is Senator Davenport. Thank you so much. Give our very best to the Congresswoman. We know that she was working with us last year in the Senate, and she got the COVID virus then and was very ill. And we know that she has a little one at home, so we want the very best for her and give her our best. We appreciate you coming on and speaking.
Thank you so much, Senator Davenport. I will absolutely take back your kind words. Unfortunately, for people who were already impacted by COVID, there is no way to predict how the vaccine will impact them. And we really just wanted you all to know how important it was for her to be here today. So I did not quite fill her shoes, but again, I'm very appreciative that you did allow me to speak on her behalf. And thank you everyone for the invitation.
Thank you again. Adrian. Hello?
Yes, Senator.
I just wanted to make sure that for everyone to please, I know Senator All could not come on. She is a physician. She had a conflict, but I want to just express that all the health officials have said, do not wait and try to get Pfizer or Moderna or Johnson & Johnson, try to choose between them. The first one that is available for you, if you are a caregiver, or if you're 65 and older, or a first responder or a teacher, get the vaccine, one of the vaccines as quickly as possible, as soon as it is available to you.
Thank you. And again, our well wishes to the Congresswoman.
Yeah.
So Senator Davenport, may we resume until other legislators come in? May we resume with our last presentation?
Yes, certainly. Thank you so much.
Which is being presented by Amanda Hollowell. And she was tying together all of the ends to really speak to us about advocacy and where we should go from now. Amanda?
First, I just want to say thank you for giving me space, because we could have easily wrapped up after all these amazing presentations from our elected officials on your very special day. And so I think the thing that we really need to move forward with in this moment is that your voice is important. If we don't build enough public will to support these lawmakers or to defend some of these bad bills or support some of these great bills, then we actually are not building the power that we want to build in our community. So advocacy is a way to do that. What is advocacy? There's several different forms of it, but like just from textbook, there's budget advocacy, which we work on at Georgia Budget and Policy Institute, which almost feels like a year-round campaign. There's legislative advocacy, where we're asking for bills to become laws. And then there's regulatory advocacy, where you need to change or amend how current laws are or how they are regulated. And so a lot of the advocacy that you guys are going to be a part of is mostly in these bigger laws, either in defense or in support of. And you know, we have at Georgia Budget and Policy Institute, we have two different ways that we engage, which is we call it a two-track strategy, where you guys are doing that now. You're directly engaging lawmakers, you're having conversations with them, you're letting them know either your policy priorities or things that you support. And then you're also informing your community about the opportunity ahead if we could support or defend certain bills or amend our budget, or find different ways to regulate current legislation. And so this is where it's really important, because I've heard it over the last few days when lawmakers say, well, no one's saying anything about it. Are you sure it's a problem? Well, they tally those votes when you call. So they tally when you call, they tally when y'all send emails. I don't care that some of them don't like that they're all cookie cutter, or, I mean, that's just an ease of way and lowers a barrier so everyone can participate. But more so, they see you when you're adding them on Twitter. Their staff is paying attention to that. And so when you have a collective as strong as this organization, you can move mountains. You can influence the thought patterns or support the thoughts of, support those who really need that help out there. And so ways to engage that we like to talk about are hosting virtual events just like this. You can also dig a little deeper and make them into town halls or legislative action days. Those are probably the ones that really get people involved. When it's safe again, I don't support this, but I know right now there's a bunch of demonstrations happening at the Capitol against the voting bills that are being presented. And so you can, host an in-person event. You can invite elected officials to speak at your in-person event, especially if it's a bill that they sponsor. But, again, use that on your own discretion and when things are safe. You can also draft a petition and get people to sign your petition. There's a lot of petitions right now going around against the voting stuff. We have several petitions that are going around to send to our governor about, fully funding the budget, expanding Medicaid. We have petitions going around supporting higher ed avenues for different funding and needs-based. And so, those make sense. Those are really great. And they're another way to lift it up. You can also sign on to some of these letters that are coming through from the ACLU, from like the Georgia NAACP. You can add your organization on there as long as, it's going in line with your core values. It doesn't impact, the 1/3 of your lobbying as a nonprofit that you're supposed to be doing. And so I think those are the biggest ways that you can actually support and really be heard. I would also say participate in your lawmakers town hall, right? They are going to be doing, once they go on break and after session, sometimes if they have a lull, they'll do it in between legislative days. if they're hosting a listening session, if they're asking to speak or have a town hall, get on there, try to make a public comment. You can also do this as well, submitting comments if there's a testimony or a hearing, that's something that you support. As an individual, you can sign up. You do not have to be an expert. But if you have a reason that you support or want to defend or want to stop a bad bill, you can sign up to be part of these testimonies and give it. Now, the chance of you being heard, it's always 50-50, but I think it's a practice that is important. I ought to also say, as an individual, you can write letters to the editor, you can do op-eds, you can do Facebook Live or Twitter Live or Instagram Live. You can really raise the social profile of an issue that you support or an issue that you want to raise awareness in so many different ways. I would say ways to engage as a coalition or a partnership. So organize and mobilize your stakeholders. Look within your group right now and see who are leaders of organizations, churches, or other social groups, right? How can we leverage what we bring, which is our votes? And figure out a way to do a collective action together. Again, educating the public, let people know what they're losing or what they could be getting. Folks just the process of democracy is hard for those who are directly impacted on purpose, right? So it is important for us to let people know as much as we can, either through newsletters, however you can, making announcements in your churches, making announcements wherever you can about what's happening at the Gold Dome. Also, we can always share our research projects with you. Our products range from higher ed to education to health. And this is the most important time because they'll ask you, well, where did you get this information or how do you have data? There's data all around that supports why we need to change some of the ways we change things. And then after session, as a collective or a coalition or with your partners, host listening sessions within your own groups. I think it's always interesting that we go out into the community and listen to everyone else, but we don't stop and listen to ourselves and listen to what our pain points are and where we're feeling it and why we should. And that really grounds you in this work of advocacy. It makes it more permanent or I guess accessible to understand like, oh, this actually is hurting. It might not be hurting you directly, but this is hurting someone in my family. This is hurting my child. This is hurting my parent. And so, or a family member in general. So that'll actually give you more of that motivation to make that call to the governor, to write that letter, right? And so these are the moments that we're really trying to get people to advocate for. So I just think, more than anything is an organization like this, an institution like this has an amazing opportunity to really raise the level of how we talk about policy, how we talk about legislation to a point where you guys can connect the dots for us and really, really make it, I don't know how to say this, but like, it's just so important, but just connecting the dots and raising that public will in support or defending or trying to end bad bills. You guys, your organizations play one of the biggest integral parts, and we would love to partner with you. And I would love to see y'all join this community conversation and hosting your own events and making sure that you are really engaged in advocacy. You're writing those letters, you're calling the governor, and you're motivated from all the great things you heard today. And I will post our calls to action in the chat. Thank you.
Amanda, thank you so much for that. And I have a question just based on what you were saying. You were speaking about petitions and letters that come about. Where do we gain access to those letters and petitions?
So we have some so you can join a newsletter. And usually when you join an organization's newsletter, ACLU, Georgia Budget Policy, Georgia NAACP, Fair Fight, or I think Pro Georgia, Georgia Equality. There are so many organizations that have petitions. Disability Community, AARP also has a great newsletter that has their petitions in it. Once you sign up or find out or just reach out to the organization, they'll start flooding your inboxes with sign here, call here, do this now. Georgia Association of Educators is really working hard right now, if anyone's a member of that organization, to fight these really bad voucher bills that we have coming that are gonna underfund public education. So we have bills to fight. We have petitions to fight bad voucher bills and fund public education, but there's a gamut of them. And so the idea is to get your name on that petition, get that count up and let them know that we will not go silently, and they will be, and we'll be heard.
Great. And we did drop the governor's office phone number into the chat so that you can all take advantage of that as you are advocating for whichever bill that you've heard today. So we are at the end of our program, and it has been a phenomenal day. And before we close out, I just want to thank several people. One, our chapter presidents, our regional coordinator. Thank you all for all of the work that you continue to do. We thank all of our legislative presenters, as well as Amanda bringing it home for advocacy and action for what we need to do. And Senator Davenport, what would we do without you, our gracious host? And I want to make sure that you know we have a special gift for you coming to your office in celebration, not only for the wonderful work that you continue to do on behalf of Spelman and the state of Georgia, but just to celebrate your birthday. It's always nice to receive gifts. So we have some Spelman swag coming your way. So please look for that.
Thank you.
So that is it for us. Senator Davenport, we give you the final word so that we can close out the program.
Let me just thank all of you today for being on this virtual call today as we celebrate Spelman Day at the Georgia State Capitol. I know I mentioned earlier that there were several who've been in the General Assembly that was Spelman grads. I'm the only one here now, but I need some help. All you young people, you need to run for office. And if I can do it, then you can do it. We need help down here in the House and in the Senate. And so I'm looking for someone from Spelman again to come with us, and thank all these chapters. You do so much all the time, and this scholarship money is just so much needed. And thank you all so much for being here and being on this call. And thank you for the work that you'll do. At 1 o'clock, when the Senate goes into session, I will be going to the well to recognize Spelman College from the floor as Spelman College Day and all the good work that Spelman is doing. Again, thank you, and you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you.